going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. It is time for split number 2 of 2025. We took a little bit of a break for MSI to reset ourselves a little bit. It's been a wild couple of weeks, I think, for both of us, honestly, but we're back. I'm in a new location temporarily. I'll be back in the old setup for our next episode. My co-host Talk, you moved in, buddy. How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great. I know I've been in the new apartment for a couple weeks. It's been a long couple weeks. Yeah, I mean, there was a combination of like it was off season and we were just also kind of feeling busy/lazy, but we are here. It is split 2. League is starting to get exciting again, especially from what was a extremely fun international event that just went by. We're not going to talk like a ton about it. It is our first headline, but dude, MSI in Vancouver, it looked like everyone had a lot of fun. I was here in Sherman Oaks, but it looked like everyone had a lot of fun, and it definitely like reignited the passion. All those game 5s, like it was super fun to watch.
I was getting a little FOMO, but it's okay. We all hung out we did a bunch of fun stuff at CLOL and stuff, so we got our fill. Hope everybody had a great time there. I had a great time watching at home, honestly. Just so many great games. I was like parked in my couch for FlyQuest BLG for literally 5 hours straight. I was like most locked in I've been in a League of Legends game in a while. I was like explaining to my parents like how the game worked, and they still weren't really understanding anything. But oh man, it was really fun.
It was so
NA
good.
always does. I mean,
all the Europeans.
I've seen the tweets go around. NA does league events really well. We've had like really good internationals.
We've had great internationals. What I love is that the crowd always gets hype for every team, and that I don't think is something I can say about internationals in Europe, and especially China and Korea, where it gets a little quiet when certain teams are winning. So that's what I love about NA league events. Also, it was really funny seeing all the Europeans like complaining about the time zone and whatnot. Meanwhile, we got like prime time league, 8 p.m. Eastern. I saw some North Americans complaining about the time zone. Fuck you. Watch real sports. Like that 8 p.m. is like the time to watch anything. So I don't know what your issue is.
We're just brainwashed into thinking that games happen like at weird hours because that's just like how the world has worked for us in esports for so many years, right?
Right. But like, no, the time zone for this event was amazing. Exactly. So it was so fun.
Yeah. It was really weird to like tune in and see like a game 5 starting at like 11 p.m. midnight, but honestly, like that's how it should be. Like game 7 of the World Series is happening like that time.
Exactly. Like late night, the chips are down, we're going ham on each other. Like that's how it should be.
That was a lot of fun. And honestly, it really got me back into things. I did, I was referencing his tweet kind of offhand, not indirectly, but I saw the end of MSI and like immediately like realized and looked at the calendar, saw some posts, and I was like, oh god, the NACL starts up like now, and so we got to get back to doing our Salty Runback thing, which is why we are here for you here today. We got our headlines today on Thursday, which is the day that the league starts. We're going to be doing another intro to all of the teams. We're going to talk about some of the rosters that have been announced like kind of quietly here back and forth throughout the episode, but we'll do like a full deep dive here on Thursday. If you want to hear like our full thoughts, power rankings, everything like that, that's for our next episode that'll be coming out the day of the start of the NACL season. This is just a bit of a refresher, getting back into the swing of things. And speaking of getting back into the swing of things, also going to try to kick back that Patreon as well. Really want to get Semi-Pro POV up and running for real this time, and maybe some other stuff. We'll keep you guys posted on kind of how that goes. But we have not forgot about you patrons. Make sure you remember that.
I think I hear grapes again. Okay. But yeah, thank you to everyone that has been supporting us on the Patreon. We know we've been very inconsistent with that, but it does mean a lot. If you have stopped supporting us because we've not been uploading as much content, completely understandable. We're going to try to get back on that grind if we can, though. Maybe make it worth your time once again. Also, before we get into all this stuff, be sure to join the Discord, subscribe to us on all of our social media. We are going to be the place for NACL, but also just North American League of Legends in general for the entirety of Split 3. So don't miss it. Check us out everywhere. And as for this episode, like Grape said, it's going to be a bona fide headlines episode. We got a lot of headlines to talk about. But if you want the full primer, make sure you're subscribed, because on Thursday, we're going to have each and every one of the rosters getting broken down. But without any further ado, we can get into the headlines, starting with a little bit of MSI talk again, because we may as well. FlyQuest, they did us proud. Ish. We did better than Europe, which is what everyone wanted. We fell in 5 games to BLG. It was a disappointing exit, considering I feel like what everyone knew FlyQuest was capable of, but also still something of a success. However, it feels that the prevailing sentiment is that the job is not done. Grapes, do you feel that FlyQuest should be on the level of the rest of the East with this 5-game performance?
Like, no, but closer. We're getting closer. I now know what it. I mean, it's been heartbreak after heartbreak every past. This is the 3rd international in a row, I guess. I feel like NRG was kind of like a success enough where we beat G2, we made it to the
that was
quarterfinals,
enough.
and we knew we were gonna get smacked.
That was
once
enough.
We got there, right?
Yeah.
The rest of these teams felt like we could have done just a little bit more if we all just did a little bit better. And this felt maybe the closest out of all of them. FlyQuest against BLG. Obviously, there was that game. What was it? The game 3 comeback into throw into.
I know, it's like, oh, we should have won game 3, but it's also like, well, we should have lost game 3, so maybe it's fine,
Yeah, exactly. And then all the fearless discussion. I don't think any of that is particularly warranted. I do think that that series is so winnable, man. And I know that if those guys played the same level that they played against G2, I feel like they would have been able to kind of pretty handily take that series. And maybe this is the sign of, maybe this is just part of LPL being weak, but I'm feeling very confident in what North America can do at Worlds. And maybe that is a foolish thing to do, but it feels like the gap keeps closing. It keeps closing, and this might finally be the time that the dam breaks.
That's my thoughts kind of at the end. I actually tweeted this under your reaction tweet to the series, Grapes. I was sort of like, eventually we're going to break through, I think, because the way I feel is that I actually am going to be on the side of, I think FlyQuest is on the level of the East, or at least close enough to it. Are they Gen G? No. Would they be favored against Gen G? Never. Of course not. But I think FlyQuest is generally at least close enough to the level of the East that we can expect things from them. And they went the distance against Gen G last year. They went the distance against BLG this year. Team Liquid did against T1 last year, right? All of those series came up tails, but sometimes it takes multiple swings of the bat before you hit a home run, right? And it sucks that we haven't done it up to this point. I mean, I think FlyQuest really desperately wants that game 5 back against BLG. That hurt, because that was such a competitive series.
They want the first 2 minutes of that game back.
Right. And it was such a competitive series, and then it just all went away, right? And that sucks. But that happens to IG or whoever whoever comes in 3rd in LPL. It happens to HLE. They completely fucking fell apart after being 1 game away from MSI. They lost 5 in a row, right? It happens to all these teams. So I feel like FlyQuest is in that same position where they haven't found the breakthrough. I think Cloud9 could do it. I think anyone else from NA could do it. We just haven't done it, and it sucks because we have to wait 5 months to see it happen, potentially, and to get another shot. But I think we are right there, Do
you have any thoughts on Inspired's interview? I think it was Arsh, where he was talking about how he doesn't have the FlyQuest, whenever they come to international, they learn a lot, but then they don't have the same level of practice once they're back in North America. Does that hold any value to you at all? And do you feel like the way the ecosystem is currently set up is maybe not super conducive to their success? Or I'm just curious, like kind of what your head is at here, because I get what you
Yeah.
mean, where teams like HLE like are also one game away from beating Genji or beating BLG or whatever, but they get to do it a lot more than we get to do it.
No, and I think that matters a lot. I mean, that kind of goes into what I'm saying is like for NA, it feels like this big special thing, and like, oh my god, we might finally fucking do it, right? But like, it's hard to break through against the best teams in the world, and so I completely think that. I mean, it's the same thing we saw with G2 back in their heyday, where you're only going to get so many chances before kind of that window might close because we're not playing against the best teams in the world every single day. And I think that's like a really great take from Inspired. I think that really matters a lot because yes, we can say that like Cloud9 and FlyQuest are pushing the envelope of what the region's capable of. And I want to give credit to Team Liquid because they were kind of the first ones to do it, right? Like, yeah, those teams are elevating our region, but it's not the same when you get into those game 5 scenarios against gods, right? And so I think that was a good take from Inspired. I don't really know what the solution is, but it definitely matters.
I think it starts with us, not with us specifically, but we're an NACL podcast, which is why we love North America. We love
It starts
developing
with us,
young
Graves.
stars. Yeah, we're the ones who are gonna save NA. No, but like I think overall, like when we have discussions about like, oh, this is good for the ecosystem, this is bad for the ecosystem, it all comes down to the fact that we want our tier 1 teams to succeed. We want to do well internationally. We want to be like
Yeah.
a great region in League of Legends, and we get a little taste of that every international. And I mean, we want to. I feel like I want to make sure that this is a more sustainable run and not something where it like all falls apart once Inspired leaves or like once people get retire and things like that. So that's why that's why we do this stuff. And you might wonder like why we're spending so much time talking about an international competition, about FlyQuest, even when they don't even have an NACL team. It's because it all connects at the end of the day, and
It's all
that's
NA.
why we're here, and that's why we're trying to we're trying to lift up and form some of these future stars, like some of the ones that we see on the team right now in Quad, Masu, and Lucio.
As we have said multiple times on this podcast, rising tides raise all ships. And it's all NA League. I mean, fuck, shout out to Bucio, man. Really great series from him. Absolutely fathered on for 4 games straight. And then Inspired maybe the greatest individual international performance of any North American player ever. I don't know if that's like a hot take. Want to throw in the hat for like Yawn last MSI was also going crazy. But yeah, Inspired was nuts, man. So shout out to FlyQuest.
I think I give it to
really
Inspired.
can't wait for
He
Worlds,
was
especially because we're going to
insane.
have more teams. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, dude, think about it at Worlds. We're actually going to have multiple teams.
Multiple. Yeah, one more. How maybe one more if we win that tournament, right? So
I forgot we still only get 2 at most.
We'll see how that
God,
goes.
We don't even get 3 teams.
Yeah.
Like, I feel bad for a team like Shopify who, like, has been kind of playing well, but, like, they're probably not going to see an international. Fuck, dude. Whatever.
There's a whole other bucket of worms that we could
It's
unlock
a whole
here
nother
and
headline.
discuss, but
We've talked
yeah,
too long about MSI.
We'll get there one day. I'm sure we both have a lot of thoughts on how to get there. But speaking of the LTA, we're going to continue our discussions on that as we finally got our final mid laner in the LTA for Disguise. It was for months wondering who this is going to be. Finally, this was about a week ago or so at this point. It's going to be DarkWings, going from Conviction, from the qualifiers, mind you, not even on a starting NACL roster at the start of 2025, up to top 3 in the NACL, into the LTA with DSG. I'm very happy for Isaac. I'm very happy for DarkWings to get this opportunity. He's grinded at this for so long, so hard. He's been on all the tier 3 teams, tier 2 teams that you can imagine. And honestly, I feel like been playing some of his best League of Legends right now. I guess my question, Hawk, is what is this going to do for Disguised? Where's DarkWings going to rank? Is it going to be better than Abadaga was last split?
I think this is probably an upgrade overall for Disguise, especially considering Jerry to Rahel. As much as I'm not happy about that move, for the record, like I think DarkWings Rahel is probably stronger than Abadaga Jerry. I mean, man, Abadaga was fucking terrible. And this is really cool for DarkWings. I mean, I think this is the best shot he's going to get. A lot of people have been saying like, oh, we saw this kid's peak back in 21, 22. Like, why are we getting DarkWings? I don't think those people have been watching DarkWings play for the last year. I feel like he kind of like felt like he was falling off towards like, 2020, like end of 2022, 2023. But I feel like he's been back. Like that slew run was really great. He had an amazing spring split on Conviction, was a huge part of the reason why they ended up as the third place team in the NACL, only one game away from finals. And so, I mean, I think it's like overall, like I'm excited for DarkWings, right? Take your shot. It's probably an upgrade for Disguised across the board with these two players versus the ones they used to have. I do think it's a really interesting conversation, though, of whether or not this saves Disguised, because no shade to DarkWings, he was like still only the fourth best mid laner in the NACL last split, right? Like Insanity doesn't want to move teams. Spyrax and Toasty both had big buyouts, which we already got into that whole discussion, right? I'm totally fine with that. And Pobelter was not interested, right? So that kind of left DarkWings as like the obvious option when you remove all those variables. But I think it's actually very clear to me that Disguise got rid of Abba and Jerry and brought in Rahel without actually knowing who their replacement mid was going to be. Remember how they like didn't announce a new mid laner for like weeks? They had no idea what they were doing. They were just hoping they found somebody better than Abadaga, and they landed on DarkWings. I think he'll probably be the worst mid laner in the LTA. I'm very curious if it's going to be enough to save them in the promotion tournament when the rest of the team has also just been struggling across the board. And like, if I'm being honest, looking at this Disguised roster, I think this looks like a high caliber NACL team. It doesn't look like an LTA team to me, though.
It's fascinating to me that they decided that, oh, yes, an NA mid laner is going to be the easier thing to find than like a native ADC, because that's like been the meme for all of eternity, is that we don't have any good native mid laners. Now, again, I do think we do have NA native mid laners.
I actually think we do right now.
For some reason,
yeah,
they thought
like,
that was the logic that they tried
like
to present with.
If DarkWings is like your fifth choice, that's actually not bad. But
that's fair enough. I am very curious to see how this works, and it's interesting to think about DarkWings' career trajectory in this sense as well, because I also, as you mentioned, like we see like this guy's been kind of in NACL forever. Like, why is he getting this chance now? He like peaked or something like that. I don't know. It's interesting because he came up in, what was it, like 2022 on Dignitas after he was on Zeus Gaming in 2021, AoE, those teams like that, and he was never like a top tier mid laner in the NACL.
Yeah.
Like he's always like middle of the pack-ish, right? I feel like this year was probably as close to top of the table as he has gotten, like kind of throughout his time. And whether you can contribute that to, I think, him making improvements in certain areas. And I mean, he was really great just this past calendar year. Or consider the fact that the people that were DarkWings was competing against when he first started and first came up to the NACL were players like Fire, Copy. Those guys aren't in the league anymore, right? And so young guys like that. It's a very interesting dynamic of like how much better has DarkWings actually gotten, or is the competition that he was playing against like kind of all faded away? I know we had like the 5 rookie mid laners come into the league this split, and so like DarkWings is kind of like straight in the middle. I think he ended up overperforming those expectations, but it is curious to see like, is this a result of DarkWings like really playing a lot better, which I do think he has done, or is it also a little bit of he wouldn't have gotten this opportunity if the ecosystem was in like a better place? It's like I think it's more the first option, but there's definitely a little bit of merit going the other direction as well.
I agree. I think it's a little bit of both. I think the last major thought I have, and this is going to be a bit of DarkWings cope for you all, is to those that said like, oh, he peaked earlier or whatever. The guy actually only had one split in Academy before it became NACL, and I would argue that DarkWings has never been on a truly competitive roster in Tier 2. He has spent time on Dignitas, AoE, Winthrop University, and we all know the lore with that one, and then Conviction. And I would really, truly argue, like Conviction was a good team. Clearly, they came third, and they went to 5 with Dark Zero. But I would argue they completely overperformed last split. And I think that was, again, quite a bit in favor of DarkWings there. So like, yeah, I think it's definitely like well, there wasn't really anybody else. Let's take DarkWings kind of move. I really do think he's playing extremely well. I think he's consistently been one of the best players on any team that he's on. And so like I think it makes perfect sense for him to take this opportunity as well, because he probably was not going to get another one, at least anytime soon. So take it while you have the opportunity, DarkWings, and prove that you can be an LTA mid laner, because he's never really gotten that look, in my opinion. And so let's see it. It might crash and burn, but Disguise was going to do that anyway. So.
And I think, as you say, like, there's some merit to, like, you're not going to get necessarily blamed for all the failures if they do happen, because this team was a bit of a sinking ship anyway that you tried to come in and save. But also, I think Darkwing's at the point in his career that it is worth it for him to take this opportunity. Like, there's no reason,
right? Yeah, I don't think he's
going to
wait
around, because this now exists for him.
There's no
right?
point in cooking longer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I heard some of what you said, but there's no point in cooking longer for sure. So,
yeah. Let's table this discussion a little bit, because with DarkWings out, it means there's some new players entering the NACL for this upcoming season. Now, as we mentioned earlier on in the episode, our next episode is going to be the full roster breakdown of all 10 teams, figuring out where we think they're all going to be placed, see if we can do a little bit better than our last power rankings. But I think what we want to do right now, Hawk, is go through each of these rosters, or maybe just pick one or two that like catch your eye, maybe made a couple of changes that you are really interested to see perform in 2025 Split 2.
Yeah, I mean, the big one for me, Grapes, is this Supernova roster, completely new. They have abandoned the Ole Miss experiment. We'll kind of talk on that a little bit more later, maybe. But Hoarder, Dardoch, Ablaze Olive, Scary Jerry, and Breezy. That's a pretty good team, if you ask me. I'm not going to lie. It's 3 guys with LTA experience, and I think 3 guys that we all consider to still be like very high profile in the tier 2 environment, being Dardoch, ABO, and Scary Jerry. We just saw an amazing split with Dardoch and Breezy on the same team on CCG, and then like the hottest new top lane prospect. I think Supernova has immediately come out as a contender here, which is super exciting to see.
It's pretty easy for me to compare this Supernova team to the Fearx Starforge team that was here last summer.
Yes.
Notably because of Blaze Olive is here, but you have XLCS in your jungle and AD carry roles. Breezy, it's never gotten that tier 1 experience, but I feel like is a similar level of like veterancy and like just like really solid play as to somebody like Winsome. And then Philip versus Hoarder, I guess is not really necessarily the best comparison, but this team reminds me a lot of that Fearx Starforge team that kind of formed not out of nowhere, but kind of randomly were put together and went on a big run to top 2. Now, we don't know entirely what Dark Zero Dragonsteel's roster is going to be. We've seen like the players at the boot camp. I'm sure we know that like, you know, some of these guys are going to be involved in some capacity, but we don't know the full starting 5. But with them, Luminosity, and now the Supernova team coming up, I think, Hawk, we have a real solid top of the table that even can be matched by some of the other rosters that are also in here. Like, I think this is much more of a balanced league even than it was last split. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes. Completely agree. I know, like, last time we were like, well, Dark Zero and Luminosity are better than everybody. Maybe there's a near airport, and then, like, the fucking boys, right? I feel like there's a much more gradual, like, skill curve where Luminosity are going to be clear favorites. We know they're keeping their roster the same, or, like, at least 99% sure, right? And I think the teams just kind of gradually taper from there. I do think a big part of it is I don't think we have like a team that got teleported to NACL when they shouldn't be there. We don't have a team that got like on a miracle run to promote to the NACL. Like, I do feel like by and large this is an NACL made up of NACL players, but I also think we have more contenders towards the top of the table that aren't just DZ and LG, which makes things very interesting. Supernova being the biggest contender within that. Like, I don't know if I have them as like a lock for top 2, but I'm really sweating if I'm Dark Zero or Luminosity for my investments towards the LTA.
Yeah, Supernova jumping in here. I think that Blue Otter's roster was interesting, and now I'm very curious to see like what's gonna happen to it. I did see Beans tweet Low Jazz's profile picture. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what that ends up looking like. And what are the other teams? I think Citadel's also. I think the teams coming in. I think we mentioned this at the end of the promotion tournament, Hawk. But the teams that are coming in to the league like are gonna immediately be competitive in my opinion. You have Citadel, who I think is running it back as they announced. Dorado is running it back almost with Sushi instead of Fadichan, which I personally think is pretty close to the same roster, if not maybe even a little bit better.
Should be pretty close.
Yeah, and Jolly Rogers I think is not going to be like they're probably 10th, but it's not going to be like they're not going to be a slouch roster at all. And the rest of the teams like are generally going to be organizations that we're pretty excited about. So I think this is going to be a pretty close race. Now, do you have any thoughts on some of these other rosters? And I have another hypothetical to ask you here.
I mean, just like some quick thoughts. Big ones being I'm actually surprised Blue Otters made so few changes of like this potential Low Jazz, and then Chrome being their AD carry. Probably a side grade from Levitate, maybe like a bit of an upgrade. I thought pretty highly of Levitate though. I will say, feels bad for Levitate.
The way Chrome was playing though.
I know Chrome had a really good split on Conviction, which is like why I put him above Levitate right now. We had them pretty close to each other heading into the last split. I do think feels bad for Levitate. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be playing in the NACL this split. I think he's definitely NACL caliber, so like kind of sucks, but good for Chrome, good for Blue Otter. I am like generally still surprised though, like this Quacker, Samikin, Rovex core is still going to be cooking. Samikin and Rovex now are going to have been playing together for 2 years, Grapes, which is pretty cool, I would say.
That is cool. Yeah, they've been playing together. Oh man, I guess music has left them, which we saw. I saw some scrims like with Dorado, so I thought maybe that was happening, but no, it looks like Kaido's still there. I don't. We'll see it. Like there's some teams that have left to be announced. I think music might be a part of one or two of them, or
music may have gone to greener
obviously.
pastures, assuming this roster that I've been told comes to fruition. But we're not a leak show, so find out next week.
We're not a leak show.
What CCG's roster is. But yeah.
I'm. We can talk about Conviction a little bit as well. I think we could focus
that
more
was the
up
other
on it later, maybe like in our next episode. But TF played Perry Cannonball Viper Stun is a very different road to take. I don't know. It's interesting.
I am genuinely not mad at this TF Blade Perry Cat Evolved topside. Like, Perry's definitely still an NACL caliber player. He's very good. TF Blade was fine, and if he still wants to play, like, sure. And honestly, I'm here for the Cat Evolved experiment. Like, him and Perry just played together anyway, didn't they? Like I'm fine with it. I'm pretty mad about the bottom lane, though. I think it's really dumb. Like, I think you could have done this fun streamer team and gotten a real bottom lane. We'll see. Apparently, Viper and Stun are both pretty highly ranked in solo queue in their respective roles. And obviously, it does have that, like, streamer clout. I just think, like, again, when I'm like, damn, it would have been cool to see, like, Levitate and Cryogen playing in the NACL. I'm like, when I look at Viper Stun bottom lane, I'm not as stoked. But it's interesting. I have this team rated pretty low personally. We'll talk about that more in our next episode, but
it seems to me that it's probably a situation where Conviction like grabbed the top side and they were like, we want to play with Viper Stun, and they were like, all right, I guess
that's what I'm. Yeah, I feel like they were like, hey, my guess is they were like, hey, Perry and Cat Evolved, who do you want to play with? That's my assumption of like what happened.
Yeah, and I guess you can't really blame it. I don't think this is like a situation where they're trying to like clout grab, because no offense to like any of these guys, but like compared to like a Cadril or a Baus or something, like they're not going to be drawing viewers the way that those guys are. I feel like if you're an org like Conviction, it's not worth it to like sacrifice your competitive level for that. But I think this could be a fun team, and you grab some talented players that you believe in, and they kind of fill out the roster for you. especially given the fact that
Yeah.
we realized and we kind of learned that the original Conviction roster that finished top three all kind of like it didn't end up working out that they were able to play together, so they had to kind of scramble last minute to lock up
It
this
is
core.
interesting because Conviction has stated that they couldn't afford Hoarder. Hoarder got a better offer from Supernova. So I'm really curious, like how much they're spending on this like streamer roster, or maybe if the streamers just kind of wanted to play, right? Because Hoarder got more money from Supernova, and then obviously, sorry, what was it? God, I'm like blanking on the rest of their roster. Kisno is going to a better team, and DarkWings went to the LTA, right? And so that was kind of how the roster like broke down. So I want to dispel any like rumors of like Conviction didn't blow up the roster. The roster blew itself up. However, I can definitely criticize the decision of like the roster that Conviction then chose to put together, which is like, it seems to me like they don't have much control over the situation. I agree with you. Like, if they're trying to clout grab, it's a bad idea anyway, just because of like, I don't think anyone's going to watch these streams and be like, oh, I'm here to watch Conviction. They're just going to be like, oh, it's Perry's NACL team or what have you, right? Like, it's Cat Evolve's team. It's not probably going to stick in Conviction stick as Conviction in Joe Schmo's mind. But it'll be a funny team to watch. And I will say, too, most of the coaching staff and management is different than what it was for last, like the Tempest people have all left. So it's just a completely different look for Conviction. I think the roster's a little dumb, but I'm really interested. Like, I'm curious, like I'm curious.
This might be a hot take. I think the team's not going to be bad. I think they're going to be like solidly in the middle somewhere, and maybe even having the upside, depending on how the bot lane does, for sure.
I think if they try, they could definitely be like upper middle of the pack, and like if they really work too. But I could definitely see a world where this team like they have a lower ceiling than near airport. So when I say like there's a world where they near airport, keep in mind the ceiling is not like, oh, they win the split. The ceiling for me is like they could be like fourth. And I think there's definitely a world where it like totally falls apart in their 10th. We'll see. I'm like I said, I'm so curious. I'm so curious.
Well, Hawk, luckily for them, they might not have a lot of time to mental boom, because as we go to our next headline, season's looking a little bit different this time around. A new format change here. Full double elimination best of 5 in the playoffs for the last couple of weeks, I believe. However, what that means is that the regular season is now a single round robin best of 1. Now, I tweeted about this when the announcement first came up. It was, I think, confirmed. It was announced like in November, and now we're just kind of really experiencing it with things kind of changing, or things coming into the season like kind of really approaching. But in 2 years' time, we've gone from double or best of 2's 16 round robin, where all teams are playing 32 games, to now teams playing 8 in the regular season, or 9, I should say, in the regular season. It just doesn't feel right or ideal. Is Hawk the expanded playoff format and getting more best of 5s worth the fact that we are only going to get 9 best of 1s for some of our teams that are going to eventually get sent home and get eliminated before the playoffs begin?
And I want to call to a Kelsey Moser tweet from about an hour ago as we're recording. The problem with NA Tier 2 is that it very much lacks a clear identity, and she kind of used like the new format just reinforces that, because I just don't get why it's like this, other than to like save time and money. But like, does anyone want that except for, I guess, like Riot? You know what I mean? Like I'm actually curious. Like, do players want a lighter schedule? Is this something that they talked about, or is it just like, hey guys, we need to get the split done quicker. Let's just do the regular season in 3 weeks. Because I like this whole idea that we're playing best of 1 so we can have 8 teams in the playoffs is bullshit, because we did it last year. So like, that's not a real argument. And it was replied to by Whipley. Whipley didn't really say too much of like, actual like context. But so I'm just sort of like, I'm just sort of speculating. Like, I don't get why we're playing best of 1s other than to make cut scrapes. Is it the end of the world? Honestly, like
It's
no, but it definitely reinforces that like win now mentality, which we have mixed feelings about.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get going quick because you drop your first two like games, not first two series, first two games, and all of a sudden like the panic button might be pressed for some of these teams. Like, oh my God, do we make a sub? Do we like bench this player? Do we change something up? Do we fire our coach? Like, it can get tense really quick, and that's not again like a conducive environment for development, which is why we're in this weird limbo space, as Kelsey mentioned in her tweet, that we are not a developmental league anymore, and we're also like not really like a battle for promotion, or we're trying to be, but it's only
We're
one
not
spot,
like a
and
really
it's like
interesting
just in this
competitive
awkward
league to
middle
watch
ground.
on its own. And I think that's part of what she's
Yeah.
getting at as well. Yeah.
It's, I mean, given the fact that it's clear that the number of show days that were made available to the NACL this summer compared to last summer shrunk. I guess, Hawk, would you have preferred it to be more similar to last spring, where we had a longer regular season with best ofs and then like maybe a smaller playoff bracket like we did? Or do you, if you had to shorten the season, would you have preferred it this way?
I think if I had to shorten the season, I would still prefer like 6 teams in playoffs, to be honest. Like I don't think having 2 extra teams in playoffs is really that much of a benefit. And I would rather have a longer regular for as boring as regular season can be from like a viewer perspective, which I guess is a really strong argument against that. Like I think it's much better, at least for like development and like the teams, I would have to think, to have that longer regular season. I could be wrong. I really could be. But I would almost argue, if we're going to do it this way, cut regular season entirely and let's just do like a 12-team bracket or some shit. Like that would maybe be, because, and that again goes to Kelsey Moser's point of like, that to me would be more of a road to promotion type tournament. And I will say, I want to bring in the other thread, which is that ACL is now an official tier 2 league. NACL players can play in it. Super cool. Congratulations to Aegis. They've been doing amazing work for the last couple of years and starting to see some of the fruits of their labor. I'm wondering if this is setting up for a potential future where Aegis is the tier 2 circuit, and then we just sort of see this like road to promotion tournament or some shit. That's getting really speculatory, but that's what I'm kind of thinking. Because I do think like this lack of regular season definitely makes Aegis a much more attractive option for consistent competition.
Every single NACL team should be playing ACL now.
Yes,
there's no question.
100%.
If you're an NACL team, you should
100%.
You should pay.
At least if you are actually trying to win. If you're trying to win.
If you can't afford the registration fee, like the $375 or anything, like
we'll
start a GoFundMe or something. I'll pay $20. We'll sponsor. Look, we'll do something. You guys got to play in this league, because
Salty Runback's team.
If you want practice, if you want to get experience, if you want to make sure you're like ready for this promotion tournament, not just have the opportunity to get there, more reps is good, more chances to play up against each other is good. And right now, the way that things are set up, ACL is doing a better job of preparing preparing players and preparing teams for the promotion tournament than the NACL is doing itself, with these like best of ones and then maybe like a little playoff bracket at the end of things. I agree with you on the tournament thing, and I want to actually bring up EU Masters / like the NLC and things like that, because they don't have a regular season. They have like a very short amount of time to complete the season, and they do basically like a GSL into knockout stage, like the NACLQs did back when they existed. And that, I think, is, if you're going to have like a limited amount of time to do things, I feel like that something like that could have been good. You could have split the teams up into 2 groups, had them play single round robin best of 3s within them, and then like a crossover best of 5 into playoffs or something like that. I feel like there's some way to format it that you didn't just have like you didn't just like create a shittier version of like the thing that needs a little bit of time to really like formulate and turn into something like a good product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Like I think you have a good point. Like I think the biggest problem is we're like clinging to this idea of like developmental regular season and playoffs when we maybe just don't need to, or if we're going to do it, let's actually have it be real. I agree. I just think this is a weird middle ground. No one asked for this, but we're doing it because I am not really sure I don't know. I don't know how much thought was put into the decision. I'm just gonna be honest. Like I just feel like it was like something that someone thought made sense, instead of doing something with intention, which is something that has bothered me in the league esports space for many years, which is, the lack of intention put behind things. Like, and I would just like to see more of that. And I will say, to maybe end it on a more positive note, I do think that's something that Aegis really has going for them. They do have a bit more intention put behind the decisions that they make. And so I'm really hoping that serves as like a great viewer outlet alongside NACL. Because Grapes, I'm going to be honest with you, at this point, I am just as excited for Aegis as I am for the NACL season. Because I think at this point, I'm just watching NACL to see who's going to be
If
in the
we get all the
tournament.
teams playing, then I would agree with you. Yeah, no, that's fair. I hope we get a lot of teams again competing. Maybe some other teams like kind of challenging them that like didn't play that aren't in the NACL, like little tier 3 action again. Like tier 3 players don't get to play until like August, and then it's just like another like kind of 2-3 week period. So this is their chance to like prove that they can actually compete against these NACL players. Like the more power, the better for these guys. And yeah, I'm curious to see like what the direction of this show turns into. Where are we going to talk more about ACL than NACL during the first few weeks because it's going to be more interesting? Like I don't know, like maybe we'll see.
I mean, Grapes, we don't have CLOL to talk about, and that filled a lot of our headlines for like a solid
That's
3
true.
months. So who knows? Maybe ACL can fill that void. But let's move on to our final headline. And well, I don't know if this is more positive, but it's more like it's kind of exciting because the question is LRN a threat to us in the promotion tournament? We talk about Disguised, Dark Zero, fucking, Supernova now, Luminosity. We've not talked about LRN really at all, and obviously, it's not our region, like, it's not going to be a focal point, but there are some new rosters being announced down there. One of them with some friends from North America, being...
Yeah, we're gonna take a quick little peek into this LRN situation. Again, the top 2 teams from here go into that promotion tournament. And we'll like revisit it probably towards the end of the split. I think the 2 teams, Hawk, that you were talking about was F5, who have Stray, Asyla from Supernova, Flash Roll Miss last split, and then Enthralled in the bottom lane.
That's the craziest
randomly,
pickup
which
to
is
me.
pretty cool. Joining alongside Grell, who's I think been in this tier 1, tier 2 of Latin America for a while, and then Cray, I don't know if I'm saying that right. He was a support that was in the finals of LRN last split. And then the other like super interesting one is Estral, who have Solid Snake and Cody, who are like solid LATAM players that we all know and love. And then they're joined by Summit Ghost, the world champion from Damwon, who has come out of retirement after 3 years to go play in Latin America and win some. And I feel like when I first saw this, I was like, haha, whatever, minor region. But then I remembered that these guys, if they win, are going to be playing against some of our NACL teams. And it did get me thinking a little bit.
So, for the record, Grell was in the CBLOL for a long time, Grape, so don't disrespect my guy.
Sorry. I knew the name somewhere.
He was okay in the CBLOL. He wasn't great. I think he went to international once, maybe? Anyway,
if I know his name,
he was in the
probably went to
CBLOL for a
international.
while, and he was okay. If you knew his name, he probably did go to international. You're not wrong. But I'm going with Sekre for the player's pronunciation. I have no idea if that's correct. I'm just going to go with that because it sounds nice. Stray, Asyla, Enthralled. That's a funny team. Shout out Stray, gets to play back in his home region. And bringing Asyla and Enthralled with him, I think it's very cool. I've always thought Enthralled is a great player. It's a pretty funny place for him to land, but like, fuck it, why not, dude? Like, go get him. And I think that team could be decent. I do not think they are necessarily a threat for the promotion tournament. I'm pretty afraid of this Astral roster, though. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, Cody's a good player. We have seen that now multiple times. He was, like, one of the best players for... What was the team? Was it Astral? They went to international not too long ago, and Cody, like, smurfed on somebody that was good. And then Summit Ghost Winsome, like... Yeah, that team is a huge threat. And I think we fucking learned from Worlds, was it last year? And from Tier 2 Worlds as well, that we should not sleep on LATAM ever again. because the disrespect is crazy, and then we look like donkeys for it.
The other team, by the way, is Fuego, that I think is like gonna be good. Like they won their first game. They made it to the finals of or they won, I think, the last split of LRN, and they have a pretty different roster than the one that they played against at the international tournament in Brazil. But they have a couple of like interesting guys that I think are gonna be pretty competitive. So very curious to see how that one works out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main takeaway is like, we should not sleep on Latin America. They are 100% a threat. We should be focused on them, even if they're not necessarily favored. I do think ultimately, like the F5 team to me is probably like it's a fun roster, and hey, our NA boys are there. Let's go Straya, Sila, and Enthralled. I would love to see them pop off. I do think teams like Astral and Fuego are going to be the ones I'm much more afraid of personally, and so like, yeah, it is not a given that a North American organization is going to either defend or promote into the LTA. But that's going to do it. If you're wondering why Grapes and I either talked over each other at points, or it seemed like we couldn't hear each other, or we paused for a long time, we've been having major connection issues. So I'm glad we've at least made it to the end of the episode now. Hopefully everything is better for our episode in a couple of days. But Graves, we're back. Split 2 begins from time of recording in 3 days.
I'm excited. I was a little bit out of it for a bit. You know, we took a couple weeks off, but now we're locked back in to the NACL and kind of just the surrounding ecosystem. We're gonna, do a little bit of, going around the space throughout this season. I think, we did our CLOL thing in the spring. I think we're gonna, kind of try to branch out into ACL, maybe the LRN, maybe the LTA. We'll see where things take us here as we come up with like more fun stuff to talk about. Because at the end of the day, that is the point, and trying to raise up our developmental boys, raise up North American League of Legends as a whole, as you said. Again, our full team rankings and everything, that'll be this next episode coming out on Thursday. Support us on the Patreon. We're going to really try to lock in onto that, and our full plans in the coming days and coming weeks or so. And I guess other than that, we'll see you all for the start of the split. I'm very excited to see kind of what our full power rankings are, and if we have any like big disagreements. I think that'll be a fun episode. Yeah,
and a big reminder for everyone, please join the Discord. The community has only been growing. It has become, in my uneducated guess, because I'm not in too many servers, but like probably the hub for conversation about any NA League of Legends, which has been so awesome to see. Like everyone that's in the Discord, I'm so happy that you all are there. And so join it if you're not, because we're also going to be doing a community power ranking of all the teams. So not only are you going to get to see all of our opinions on the episode releasing in a couple days, you're going to get to see all of your peers and all your fellow listeners' reactions and thoughts on each and every one of the teams, and maybe even each and every one of the players. So definitely make sure you join our Discord and check us out on all of our social media as well. You're going to want to do that. But that's going to do it for today's episode. All of our social media is at Salty Runback NA, at Hawkcasts, at Speedy Grapes. And if you think that Conviction is going to win the split, then damn, take what we said with a grain of salt. Hardest team to rate for sure. I've been Hawk, that's been Grapes. Have a good one.